Hello there. Thanks for joining me again. My name is Kevin Kaplan, and I'm from the Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Team at the Children's Resource Center in Bowling Green, Ohio. And this is a recorded version of a parent chat. The topic of this parent chat is coping with parent guilt. There's a lot of information out there about this topic from various resources, some professional, some are just general media uh, articles talking about it. But those can be great places to start to find some insight and some suggestions and resources around this topic because it is a very real concern. It's also known as mom guilt. And I think that's just because moms tend to more often play the role of primary caregiver as opposed to dads. And so you might also look up mom guilt and you might find some additional information and resources out there. To bring to you some of the information that I found and that we have learned in mental health is that when thinking about parent guilt, the basis of it is mainly on the thought that you haven't maybe done enough. You um, have not maybe in some ways been the perfect parent, and when those times happen, which they may be are likely happening every day, that can really start to eat at you. And by eat at you, I mean make you question yourself. Um, and it might even have you um, taking on responsibility for the outcome of things that happen in your family, even when you maybe didn't have a big role in it. Um, and that it's common for parents to deny their own needs, and I think to a certain degree, society expects that. We have to remember though that parents have needs that in some cases kind of have to be met before they can meet the needs of the child. And I think that's where it gets kind of sticky, that parents are struggling with to juggle that expectation, that they have for themselves, that society has for them, and that they also learned from their child rearing when they were a child and their parent maybe did the same for them. What this The cost of that, though, the cost of denying your needs as a parent can lead to lots of other issues, um, can contribute to a lower tolerance of frustration. Um, it could lead to depression and other mental health concerns that might put you in a situation where it becomes a cycle of not being enough, not doing enough. Things aren't as good as they should be. My child is not acting right, and taking on too much responsibility over your child or your family's behavior or things that happen within your family. Children to some degree are outside of our control to some degree. And so there are some things that parents take responsibility for that maybe um, they could let go of that. And I don't suggest that that's an easy thing to do, but it's something worth noting. And that the part of it is just a normal kind of doubt about, did I make the right choice? Did I do the right thing? Did the way that I handled my child's problem, the way that I responded to them, was it enough? Did it? Did it upset them? Are they still gonna love me? Do they still think I love them? Lots of that doubt and blaming ourselves, blaming yourself as a parent for those things, and having ongoing concerns about your child's development and fear that your decisions or actions are going to negatively impact them and their development. And it becomes a problem when these are intrusive. And so they're kind of taking over your thoughts and they're happening on a regular basis to the point where it's affecting your mood, maybe, and your quality of relationship with your kiddo or your family. What causes this guilt? Well, to some degree, it's a normal thing because the problem with parenting is that there's no perfect parent, and there are books on parenting, but I mean, it's not like a piece of furniture where you get a manual and you can just put it together. As long as you follow all the instructions, things will be fine. Development does not work that way. And so when it comes to children and families, they're very dynamic. There's lots of different parts at play in development and growing up. And so there's always going to be an unknown aspect to something that is happening. And so there may, to some degree, parents may always feel some level of responsibility for the outcome, even if it really didn't have a lot to do with their involvement. But more becomes their perception as the primary caregiver or the caregiver of any kind. And, children in the first 6 years, especially, are going through so much change and growth. I mean, this is the period where their brains have grown um, almost to the size of an adult in such a short period of time. And all of those circuits, brain connections, all that wiring is happening where um, you might see big changes in a short period of time in your child's abilities. And so one day they're depending on you for everything. And then the next thing you know they're running around and trying to get their own needs met in other ways beyond just crying or yelling as an infant. And that kind of then, you know, s- shoots off this long series of events called childhood and human growth, right? And so um, I think that parents might get caught up in that, that, and then society's got a lot of, again, a lot of expectations for what a good parent is. And if you've ever felt judged out in public, then you're a normal parent, because that is um, that is pretty normal. And so I I'm not trying to over normalize this because I think that there is too much pressure in some ways from society. And I don't mean to suggest that parents should just suck it up because that's not going to help. Um, I think that society has a lot of learning to do about child development, and um, that would help give them some insight into the struggles of parents. I mean, even parents who have raised kiddos before and are judging other parents, they maybe they dealt with the same thing, right? They went through those same struggles, and they seen, and they probably felt judged themselves, and they probably judged others too. And so that's the cycle that needs to stop. It's not about judging, it's about empathy, and having empathy for parents to help support them in recognizing that these challenges are normal to a certain extent. Um, and it's not always the parent's fault. And even if you can try to point it down, pin it down on the parent completely, I mean, I would find some ways to argue that, it's not all the parents doing. Um, and parents have to also kind of check their own expectations for themselves. And is that in line with what they thinking about? Is that in line with what you want to be as a parent? Is that in line with your expectations, like what you want your goals to be kind of as a parent? Um, because sometimes parents can take on, like I said earlier, those expectations from society, and they may not always do that intentionally or, you know, consciously. So we might watch a TV show or the news and get an idea about what it means to the right kind of parent, and then that becomes a part of our worldview of parents. When in reality, maybe that's not a realistic expectation for most parents. And so identifying kind of being it's important to kind of be reflective and think about your mental thoughts that you're having around being a parent, and ask yourself, is that really realistic? Like, is that something I can really live up to? Because I think a lot of times it's not. So and then I've already mentioned it, but letting go of the idea that there is a perfect parent, because if you've not heard this before, there is no perfect parent. And I think that just comes down to the fact that childhood and development is so dynamic, and there's so many different things at play, both in the home, the family, the culture, society, the media, the environment. There's so many things to consider. And just as no two fingerprints are exactly the same, no two children are the same, and no two parent child relationships are the same. And so there's we have to let go of that. We really have to. History of the parent is important. Their childhood can give cues as to what struggles you might deal with as a parent, because a lot of times those are the same struggles that your parent experienced. So those are the same struggles that you're potentially going to experience, because what we've seen in the literature and through some studies in child development is that parents learn child rearing early on when they are children. I mean, sure, as you become an adult, you have some conscious control over this, but the foundation for your child rearing skills is set in you early on as a child. That's why you see children playing with dolls and toys and things that they're processing that experience that they're having with their parent, and that's being recorded in their mind neurologically. And so that becomes then the foundation for their most of their parenting skills. And so if parents can explore their history a little bit, maybe that's where some of the insecurities are coming from that they're having around their parenting. And maybe there's some areas of parenting that they could work on and get some support with, whether it's from a family member or a friend or a professional. And parents will often compare each other when out in public or on the news media, and judge each other. And as I said earlier, that's really got to stop, because that really is fueling this sense of guilt. And so you might ask, well, what are you going to do then when you see something that you don't approve of? Well, have a space in as long as the child's not being in immediate danger, have a space for the struggles that parent may be going through. Because I bet if you're a parent or you raise children, that you can think back to a time when you went through a similar struggle. And I mean, if you have to engage with that parent for some reason, um, which I don't suggest that you go out offering parent support in public, but if for some reason you were nearby this parent and you made eye contact or something, you might just acknowledge that it is difficult being a parent, or that you experienced a similar struggle. Give them some empathy for that situation, and that will help a lot more than judgment. So, we've kind of talked, or I've shared with you some ideas about what to do so far, but I wanted to list out some additional things to kind of cover and to think about your standards as a family. If you are a single parent, um, you know, take some stock, think about what it is that means to be a good parent for you. Trying to limit those outside influences, although very difficult to do. If you're in a parenting relationship, talk to your co-parent about the standards that you find appropriate and stick to those. Stick to those. If you read a parenting book or listen to a parenting podcast or listen to an audiobook about parenting, that's great. If you learn some new information, find out what's going to work for you and incorporate it into your standards and expectations. This will give you a more solid foundation to refer back to, in the sense that you know what you want for yourself, and then you can meet that. It's much easier to meet the standards when you know what they are, as opposed to when we just go around kind of following what society wants you to do. And making sure that those are realistic. You can realistically do them. Like, you can fulfill these, you can meet these standards on a daily basis. They're not so high that you're struggling every day to meet those standards to the point where it's wearing you thin and you're feeling some burnout, because that is going to affect your relationship and your ability to parent appropriately if you are burned out and exhausted. And be sure to compromise with your loved ones, with your family, with your kiddos, and with yourself. There are times when you might not meet that standard, and look at why am I not meeting this standard? Well, it's because I had a couple extra appointments this week, and so I had to juggle some things, and I had to let go of a couple things that I wanted to get done, or that I wanted to do with my child or with my family. But I had to let go of these couple things because I had some other appointments scheduled. That's a compromise. um, and compromise, like I said, with the others in your home. So there are times when you might have a set rule, but some event has changed the course of the day, whether it be a school delay or something that affected your normal routine. It's okay to talk about that as a compromise. Well, today we're going to do this differently because of this change, but try to keep things consistent as much as possible. That helps to support children in feeling safe and um, giving them a sense of trust in that their caregiver has it together. Keep an eye out for those social media ideas about those messages out there in social media about being a perfect parent, because we don't always see them in the writing, but in the pictures. When every picture you see from a parent on social media is a positive, good picture of them with their kids, and their kids behaving and their house clean, those things can give you the sense that you're not good enough. So keep an eye out for that. Accept your faults. You know, you are a person too, and you have limitations and boundaries. Explore those a little bit, kind of begin to learn those, because it can help you to navigate your day. And if you can recognize that you get frustrated easily around a certain problem that's happening, take a moment to think about that and accept that maybe there is nothing you can do about it other than changing your routine a little bit, so that your child's not having to wait so long to get in the car, and so they're not getting frustrated, and then you're having to respond to that and deal with that. And so maybe planning the day a little differently will help. So it's important to reflect on your day from time to time and think about those things and recognize your strengths. Don't forget to identify and label all of the great things you've been doing as a parent, all of the things that you've achieved every day. One bad thing can happen in a day and it can almost ruin that whole day if that's what we focus on. And so it's important to our mind is can be fed by that negative recurring thinking. And so when you find yourself doing that, try to stop for a minute and maybe list two positive things that happened that day, or get up in the morning and state one positive thing that happened this week or yesterday. Kind of get your mind into that positive mindset, and notice all of the things that you do have, like that gratefulness for, maybe it's just for having a house, a roof over your head, or that got all the bills paid one day, or that everyone made it home safely. Little things like that can help and increase your coping skills. So finding a hobby that you can do once every day or every other day. Practice some mindfulness every day for a minute or two. You can do this with your child too. And reach out to a family member or a friend or someone that you can talk to now and then to just kind of decompress a little and just talk about general things, like have some general conversation. It's important to feel connected to others, and so that's where that kind of comes in. And get some movement in, some exercise activity. Get yourself checked out by your doctor. Make sure that your health is good. If you can't maintain your own health, then it could put you at risk. And where does that leave your child? And I'm not trying to get you super concerned about it, but if you haven't been to the doctor for a while and had yourself checked out, that's something to consider. Maybe you're really struggling with some intrusive thoughts and some depression, and so maybe you reach out to a professional, and that's okay. There are a lot of resources out there in the community for counseling, parent support type things, parent peer activities. And if you're in Ohio, NAMI, that's the National Alliance for Mental Illness, they have a parent peer support program that you can reach out to. I invite you to look that up. And if your child is 3 or under 3, then you may be able to get some support and guidance from early intervention. And then in a lot of areas, you can call 211 to get resources and information. And that would be an information and referral service. And some counties also offer that without the 211 number. So thank you for watching this video. And again, this was a recorded parent chat about coping with parent guilt. If you're looking for more videos and tips and resources, check out our YouTube channel at the Children's Resource Center. And you can also find us on Facebook at the CRC Infant and Early Childhood Connection. And I hope you subscribe to our channel so that you can get updates of when we put on new videos. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.